So on the previous video, we attempted at rebuilding the rear end of my 2003 Mitsubishi Evolution. And if you watched the previous video, you would have seen that I managed to do it successfully and we managed to nail the job pretty good. Now today we are sending the car off to get painted. And as you can see, the car is in desperate need of some love and attention. And just like that, 2 days later, we got the car returned from the panel shop. Which now brings us to today, and we're going to be starting to put this car back together. Now, I do have all of the original bumper, which I did get resprayed along with the rear end of the car and also the front end of the car. But when I first got this car, it never had any of the original support brackets or bracing behind the other bumper. It was just tech screwed in. So I've got some diagrams of how it's meant to go back together. So let's start getting the rear bumper back together and see if we can figure out this puzzle. So here are all of our pieces. Now I went and got every single bracket, all OEM from Mitsubishi. I went and sourced everything from a good friend of mine who's been helping me out with all OEM parts for this car. So we've got our upper brackets, number plate bracket, and all the bolts and clips that are needed for this. And as you just saw, this whole rear end has now been painted and done perfectly. I mean, look at the seam sealer here. He's done an exceptional job. Can't thank him enough for doing such a good job on this, but let's start piecing this puzzle together and let's start getting it back onto the car. So by the look of this picture, it looks like all of the other trims, the main brackets, bolt to the car first. So we'll go ahead and bolt this all in and then go from there. How hard can it be? Now I'm fitting these foam washers to the bumper support. This just stops the support from scratching the paint once it's mounted up and fitted to the car. Then we can fit the side wings to the car, which hold the edges of the bumper to the rear quarter panel. Now we are fitting the rear bumper to the car. Before then, realizing I made a massive mistake. The actual support brace was meant to be fitted to the bumper prior to installing it. Would you believe that? Now here is me fitting it the correct way this time. Alright, so now that the main skeleton of the bumper is screwed in, as you can see, it's screwed in the sides here, and then it just sits in the tabs on this side and gets top riveted in. So I've got to put some rivets in this piece as well. Then there's another bracket here that goes in and gets riveted on. But these two, you can see, are missing. That is actually for a bracket for the number plate parker lights. Now, unfortunately, when I got this car, it had an aftermarket bumper on it and it did not have that light bracket. So that means that at a later date, we're gonna have to pull this bumper back off again and fit that bracket so then we can mount the parker lights properly. But that's how it goes, unfortunately. So let's go and get all of our rivets in so then we can get this bumper back onto the car. Now we have to rivet the bracing to the bumper to make it more rigid and less flimsy. And once that's done, we can go ahead fitting it back to the car, this time the right way. few screws in the sides and some minor manipulation, and finally we have the rear bumper fitted. Now we're fitting the new clips for the tail lights so that they can also get put onto the car. Alright, so that is basically done now. We are missing the screws from in here. I had to order them. I didn't have the right ones because the rear end was all mismatched. It wasn't complete. It didn't have them when I did it. Also, I'm waiting for the screws for the number plate bracket, but I have the bracket here. And that just sits in there like so, with the number plate in there. How good does that look? Finally, the rear end is almost complete. All the clips underneath all are in. These side clips, the bolts, everything's all in, and it just looks fantastic. And it's so good to have a complete bumper with all the little factory clips in there. It just makes the car feel and look a bit more solid. Now that that's done, we're gonna head over to the engine bay and start putting together some things in there. All right, so now that the rear end is now complete, now we're gonna go over and start putting together the front of this car. So we'll start by putting in the plates for the vehicle, the VIN and the chassis plates, and then we'll start maybe going and doing the firewall, and we'll work our way from there. Just try and remember all this, as this is gonna be so hard. Luckily, I took plenty of photos, but let's go and start putting the plates back on, and then we'll start off from there. Now that those plates are done, now we can go ahead and put our firewall matting back in. So we'll go and get that back in, so then we can start to do everything else. But in order to get that back in, we have to thread the wiring harness and clutch lines through, which shouldn't be too much of an issue. We'll just have to pull them through one by one and then get it all mounted up. And then we can start putting on the brake booster and all that sort of stuff. So let's go. Here I'm fitting the firewall installation mat. Now its job is to keep the engine bay heat from inside the car. And as pretty as this bay looks, I think without it, it would be quite hot inside the vehicle. Now I'm fitting the new brake line clips to the firewall, and these also act as retainers for the installation mat. And now that those are in, we can go ahead and clip in our brake lines to the brake booster. In goes the brake cylinder and also the clutch cylinder, freshly cleaned and looking brand new right at home in that engine bay. And the bolts for the brake booster are inside the car. Sort of see it just up there. Now we'll go ahead and get that tightened up. Oh, this is a rather unpleasant job. Not even really much room to get under there. You just have to feel it. Now that all the bolts are in, it is time to go ahead and put our pin back in. Now just securing some final brake line clips and fitting the lines to the booster, making sure not to over tighten as you might strip the heads. Alright guys, so that's all we're actually going to have time for in today's episode, but I hope you made it this far in the video and enjoyed watching along. Next time I think we might be doing the gearbox, or we may be doing the engine loom. Now this is pretty bad hack job. There's stuff spliced in and connectors still connected for some reason. Not even using that anymore, that's for the old airflow sensor. But stay tuned. I'll see you in the next video and drive safe. Peace.